things I did about 10 or 15 years ago, I started a series of concerts for young composers. And two young composers asked me what they wanted to know what they should do, how they could make a career in music. And I said, why don't we start a music series, and then you'll learn a lot from doing that. And that's become a kind of a little institution now. We started by raising money in my living room, and then the budgets are actually getting kind of big now. I eventually left that group, but the idea was to listen. I just wanted to listen to music, to hear what people were doing. My generation, people born in the late 30s and early 40s, the music world that we entered was much more, in terms of new music, was, how can I say, much more formalized. There was a certain style of music that was considered modern. And there are a few styles actually, but there were dominant styles, and you were expected to write in one of these accepted styles of music, whether it was called serial music or dodecaponic music or abstract music or tonal music or different names for it. But my generation decided we didn't want to do that. And it was a lot of fun not doing what everybody else did, actually. And after my generation, the people that came out were very much followed in that way. They no longer were paying it that much attention. I still did. I knew John Cage quite well, and I met Nunn Carroll. I knew people like that. Harry Parch. So you'd have to be born in the 30s to even know those people. But I was very interested in that generation. But the young composers, what I like about them is that they're not particularly interested in what we do. They're doing something else. And I enjoy that so much. More than if they were doing what I did. Well, it doesn't interest me very much to hear people sound like me. I can sound like me. I know what that is. And usually they're sounding like something I did 20 years ago, not what I'm doing now anyway. I'm very interested in the young composers, and what I find that they're doing, I'm going to speak in a general way now, combining dance and image and movement. The elements, if they're movement, text, image, and music, those are the four. It's the earth, air, fire, and water music. And there's a lot of that kind of work happening now. The young guy, now I have a studio in New York. I have 2 or 3 young composers in it all the time. They're working they're helping me, you know what they're doing? They're helping me with the computers. Because they're really good at it and I'm not. And very, like I just finished a symphony, and one of the ways I found out the easiest way to check for errors in the notation is to put it in the computer and then listen to it, because then you can hear all the mistakes. Trying to read music and read mistakes is very, very hard. It's much easier to hear them. So someone's got to I wrote a symphony, it's 48 minutes long. It's going to take some guy, I know the guy who works right, so it'll make him 5 weeks to put it into the computer. At the end of the time, we'll listen to it and I'll correct it. Now, I'll correct my score, then when I give it to the copyist, all he has to do is get it right. That's not that easy to do either. But at least I can be sure that I've given the notes are correct. So a lot of the work with the computers now, they are coming to work with me because they're trying to figure out what I did. I don't really teach them, but my music goes through their hands, and I'm sure that they're learning something, and they get paid for this too, by the way. So it's a job, and it keeps them off the streets and not teaching music, which they don't want to do either. My generation got out of the conservatory business pretty much. A lot of people still do, but there are not that many jobs anyway. A lot of people go into computer work, and it's a difficult it's a very overcrowded environment. The workplace is very crowded now, right now in music. But so I get to hear a lot of music from what they do, and they'll give me scores, and I'll listen to it, and I don't say very much. I mean, sometimes I'll look at a piece and I'll say, because one thing I can tell from looking at music how well someone is trained. It's easy for me to do that. In the same way that when I have to audition singers for an opera, I have to tell you, mostly they sing, you have to hear an aria for 3 or 4 minutes, but within 30 seconds you can tell whether they can sing or not. Isn't that true, Brian? I know. And then the question is, okay, how much do I have to hear? And if you've got 30 or 40 people to listen to, and you have to listen to 3 minutes of each one, that takes up a good deal of the morning. So I get out of it as quick as I can. But the point is that one of the things that comes with experience is that you can see and you can hear things right away. And sometimes I'll look at, this has happened to me numerous times, and I'll say to some person, I said, how much counterpoint did you really study? And they said, well, we didn't really do it at school. I said, well, what did you do? He said, well, we read the book. It's kind of like learning to swim. We read the book, and we did a few exercises. Now, that's not doing counterpoint. Doing counterpoint is, I know because I did it, it's doing 3 or 4 hours of work every day for 2 or 3 years. I'm telling you, that's what it is. What you're doing is learning, you're teaching your brain to visualize music. And in the same way that you're teaching your body to move, or if you were a dancer, if you're a poet, teaching yourself to use ordinary language and to elevate it to poetry, that's a fantastic achievement. I have the greatest respect for poets, and of course, in the economic ladder, they're right at the bottom, of course that's where they would be. Only the dancers are as slow as they are. I'm talking about economic success, but so I would say to someone, well, how much counterpoint? And they would say, well, I said, look, I said, well, what are you trying to do? And they said, well, very often they'll say, well, I'd like to write commercial music and then write my art music because I'll make my money from writing. Well, that isn't that easy either, but I said, well, if you want to write commercial music, you've got to do it really fast, otherwise it's not worth the time. If you want to do it fast, you better learn the counterpoint, because otherwise you can't do it fast enough. Most composers that I know who do commercial music have a budget. The budget is how much time they'll spend on a commercial. My personal budget is 2 hours. For real, 2 hours, that's it. First of all, you don't want to spend more time on that anyway, because it's too complicated. It'll never fly. But if you have to spend 6 or 8 hours doing a piece that takes 2 hours, it doesn't make any sense. So what I try to encourage some people is to get some, we were talking about the tools, get the tools together. Unfortunately, a lot of schools don't do that so much anymore. If you're an instrumentalist, I'm sure, you had to study with master teachers. You had to. Otherwise, you don't even know what to listen to, right? You don't even know what the model is. When a painter, or a dancer, or a poet, they're not that different. And when you feel you're in the presence of someone who can say something in their art, in a way. And I certainly always had that feeling with Ravi Shankar. I still have that feeling with him today. He's at 91, I heard him do a concert last year. He doesn't play like a lion anymore. He's a very frail man, but the alaps are still beautiful. The slow parts are wonderful. And when you're in the presence of an artist like that, and it could be a painter, it could be a poet, and I've heard poets too who could do that, you feel that they are they're having a conversation that most of us aren't able to do. And yet we eventually are going to have to do it. They're having a conversation with the Trinity. And they're sharing it with us. I don't know how else to express it.